City of West has been around for a long time. It started back in the 1800s. It's an old railroad town, started that way, developed along the railroad tracks. It was called West Station initially, and that's how it became West, shortened up.
When the Czech and German immigrants came, you talk about hardship and suffering and being brave. Our forefathers, they came over here with a box of clothes. That's all they had. They came here, settled in West. They worked hard. They played hard, but they worked hard too.
West is actually east. It's central Texas, but West, Texas is what we refer to it as.
It's a great place to grow up. Very tight-knit community, very safe. It's one of those places, play until the streetlights come on. Just wonderful.
The community of West is very resilient, and they look out for each other. We all look out for each other.
My son could ride his bike to the park, which he often did growing up, and if something were to happen or there was a need, someone was going to know who he was or know to give him help.
Outsiders who come and visit here, they immediately fall in love. I love hearing so many people saying, I would love to move here, I'd love to raise my family here. It's an amazing little town. Everybody knows your name. Anybody's willing to lend a hand. We're the friendly city.
In 1975, my father became mayor. He was mayor for 10 years here. And I would watch and listen as people came in and went from this office and how he handled them and showed them respect. And the one thing he said is, I'm not gonna lie to you. Whether you like the truth or not, he said, never promise something that you can't keep. And so I learned a lot of that in interaction and city business being here. And then a few years after that, I decided to run for mayor. I wanted to leave this town better than I found it. I think every mayor wants to do that. Dogs and potholes is what I figured I'd have problems with. And man, was I wrong. I was wrong. West Fertilizer plant was here for a long time. And at the time that they were established, they were probably about a half a mile outside of town. And as the growth continued and expanded to the north, the city just grew into that area. The park was there and the subdivisions were there and the nursing home was there. There was not a worry about it at that time. Over the years, that morphed into a mixing plant. And those are done by bulk chemicals. So you have ammonium nitrate, you may have sulfur, you may have potash, you may have all these other chemicals, and what they do is they take bulldozer bucketfuls and they put it in and they mix it around and then they put it in a hopper and the farmer takes it out to the field. Ammonium nitrate was stored in a wooden building.
The facility itself was not a fertilizer plant. It didn't make fertilizer. What it did was it sold fertilizer. So it didn't manufacture it there. If this fire had occurred a month prior or a month after, we would not have seen the same results because we were in the middle of fertilizing season. They bring in fertilizer for the season, and so they don't normally keep that amount on hand.
The day of the explosion, normal day, went to work, picked up my daughter, came home. We were grilling burgers outside, and when I opened the door, I see this huge cloud, like huge dark cloud of smoke.
I got a phone call from my father-in-law to ask me what was going on. So I stepped outside. My house is, as the crow flies, maybe a quarter mile, maybe a half a mile from the actual structure. So you could see immediately that there was something going on. I said, I gotta go. Went straight to the scene. I had some bunker gear at the house, so I was able to put that on.
I went to the fire station and I met another fireman that was late. And we got in the last truck, he was driving. I looked at him, I said, you know what? That place scares me.
We're talking about a big fire, a raging fire, a lot of commotion going on at the time. We decided we were going to call for help and basically try to step back a little bit and reassess what we needed to do. So I was going to go over to the other truck on the other side of the fire and tell them what we were talking about. I remember walking over toward that truck and zipping up my coat and getting everything prepared. And that's pretty much where my memory cuts out.
I was walking towards the fertilizer plant, and I was probably a block and a half away when it blew up.
Oh, you okay?
Dad?
You okay?
Dad, I can't hear.
Come here.
I can't hear. Get out of here.
And I saw the concussion, and I saw the wave of air, and it hit me. And at that time, all I saw was black. It was just smoke.
So apparently I was behind that truck on the other side when the actual explosion occurred, and it blew me from there into a tank that was several yards, many yards away. And that's where I was found, underneath that tank.
We're probably 200 yards from this structure. And the young man standing next to me said, "I hope everything's okay." And as soon as he said it, the blast happened. It threw us probably 10 feet. It was like a shock wave that went through us. And so when I saw my daughter's face and my son was bloodied and he was hurt and he was scared, I went into flight. Just get out. You don't know what's coming, you don't know what's happening. So we fled. I was afraid it would happen again. I honestly thought if it did this and it does it again, it'll kill us all. And when we got out of town, all you could see is red and blue lights just flooding the city. I couldn't count the number of emergency vehicles from every direction.
When the explosion happened, I was completely just numbed. Fans falling on you. My closet doors were going around. They hit me and I was dodging. I got down and I figured that there'd be hundreds killed right there in the street. There was a boulder this big in the yard. That metal that came out of there was still popping hot.
We pulled up on the street and we started going into houses. All the sheetrock and insulation had come down because when an explosion goes in, it goes in and it sucks back out. Well, it sucked all the sheetrock down off the ceilings, so you couldn't hardly get in.
Everything was dark. The front door and the side lights were completely blown in, and every inch of the ceiling had collapsed into the house. Everything was under a foot of sheetrock and insulation. The ceiling was gone, and when I looked up, you could see the stars through the holes in the roof.
That evening, there was so many fire trucks, so many vehicles. I think there was 5 helicopters just sat out there in a field, across from the community center. You really don't realize how bad it is until, when you can see the north side of town all glowing from all the fires, and then you're on the south side of town and you're seeing all these helicopters and ambulances, and you really don't realize how bad it is.
Yeah.
You're just in shock, I guess.
Yeah.
I was just flabbergasted. Such a thing could happen.
Wounded deep from duty, feeling anger more than pain. Me and my old pal from high school, arm in arm we fought the flame. Lord, bring the rain. He said, brother, get more holes than water. Was the last time he called my name. We gotta fight this beast together. No more water, only flame.
The buildings that were damaged severe. It looked like a bomb had hit some of them. A lot of debris, a lot of confusion, because we'd never had nothing like this to happen. It was worse than a hurricane ever dreamed about being. It was just a total chaos for a long time.
Nobody could sleep because, you're waiting, you're seeing it on CNN, you're seeing it on all this stuff, and they're saying a potential second one could happen. Where do you go? Do you go to Waco? Do you stay at your house? And I think that was the hardest part, is not knowing how to protect my family.
When I was at the community center taking the calls, sure, some of them were tear-jerkers when they called, but you kept it together. You didn't show emotions so that you could help the person on the other phone.
At 11:30, when we did our briefing of the group, Dale came up to me and he said, "Frank, I got some good news." And he said, "We have transported our last known patient out of triage," which is out of where you're sitting, right here. And that was, for me personally, the first time I could breathe all night, because that's big, you know, I mean, life, right?
When I finally sat down around 3:30 a.m., we turned on the TV and there was my little town. There was my little town on national news. And that night, we had almost as many first responders show up from all over Texas as we have total population of the city of West. And it was just mind-blowing to see how many people came to help. We had folks that were pushing nursing home residents down the street in wheelchairs, and we were loading them up in the back of pickups and buses to take them to a safer triage area.
When I first saw it, it was scary. You just didn't know who was all there. I knew the firemen that were running through my head that I knew because I grew up with them. They were hometown people. The hardest thing was not knowing who you were going to see the next day.
They tell me that I was the closest one to the actual explosion that survived the explosion. But there was a lot of people behind me that were killed. Mainly, some of those didn't have on bunker gear. Some of those were in the apartment across the railroad tracks. Everybody that was in front of me was killed.
I was actually a fireman at the time, and I was actually at that fire when it happened. I lost a lot of good friends that night. And that was, of course, in the back of my mind, being with them on the fire department and seeing everything that day.
The next memory I have is probably in ICU at the time. I had people come and visit me probably on Friday, about 48 hours after the explosion. Excuse me.
We can build back houses. We can build back streets. We can't bring back those people. You celebrate their lives. They did their best, but it's always going to be an old space in that heart where they're missed, and I don't think that's ever going to go away.
We lost a lot of good folks that night. I miss those faces, seeing them in town every day, and to this day, you don't forget them. They're still there with you, and I can still see their faces. I mean, like I just know them like I saw them yesterday. So.
The blast itself, measured on the Richter scale in Lake Whitney, it was like an earthquake. It was equivalent to 10 to 20,000 pounds of TNT exploding. The crater was 10 foot deep, 93 foot wide. I can envision it maybe like an Olympic-sized swimming pool.
It didn't make any difference whether it was a water tank, whether it was a house, apartment complex. It just damaged everything, even the playground. I mean, it wiped it out. It just looked terrible. Something that you couldn't imagine otherwise unless you saw it yourself.
When the explosion happened, obviously just a few yards away from the main detonation point was the railroad berm, which is probably
8 feet?
Yeah, I would say 8 to 10 feet in height. It deflected the blast upwards and over, so if it wasn't for that berm, there would have been substantial more damage. I mean, you know how heavy a railroad track is. Well, it took those tracks and bent them several feet outwards and probably several yards long.
Yeah.
The train was actually shut down for about 2 or 3 days before they were able to reconstruct that.
Because they were using a lot of water at that time, they had drained their ground storage tank down, which was made of steel. When the explosion happened, the pressure gradient was so great. Imagine taking Coke can after you're finished with it and crumpling it. That's what their ground storage tank looked like after the explosion in that area.
The damage to the school was structural. The structure of the school bent, so it was uninhabitable.
But luckily at that time, it was a Wednesday night, and a lot of people are at church. And our churches are on the other side of town. They weren't at school. There was no school functions, but we're very blessed. It was gonna happen at that time.
It was a scary thing. We didn't know what was going on. We didn't know what to expect. And there was just debris everywhere. I mean, rocks the size of boulders and grain bin parts, you name it. It was just scattered all around. I'm like, how are we ever going to clean this up?
Yeah.
And then there was this flood of people who just came in and just wanted to volunteer their time and just pick up trash.
And the donations, there was 18-wheeler loads of water, food, clothes, furniture, mattresses, just everything. And as bad as the world is these days, there's still a lot of good people out there.
CJ was having to come up with a master plan for water, wastewater, streets, and drainage while taking care of all the leaks, while fielding dozens and dozens of questions daily, while trying to figure out how he was going to rebuild his own home so his family could get moved back in. And I remember one time we had a meeting, I don't know if it was at 6 or 7, I remember Tommy saying, CJ, you seem grumpy this morning, and he said, I didn't know it was morning. He hadn't been to bed. No city, no mayor, no city council, no public works director is ever prepared for anything like that. There is not a checklist to go by. There's not a book. There's not a manual. And so it is absolutely designing and building the airplane at 30,000 feet. I'm sure that there are mayors all over the country that could have stepped up and done an excellent job, but I don't know how any of them could have done a better job than Tommy Mushka. Tommy was absolutely the right person at the right time to be mayor. Tommy, I remember your leadership and people coming and asking 1,000 questions, and you answered every one of them. You did. Even if it was a minor question, you answered every one, but everybody knew that you had this. And so that next morning, I came up and we were in City Hall. That's when you all were getting asked 1,000,000 questions. The chairs were all gone. I have no idea where the chairs were. I think people were sitting maybe out in the lawn. The three of us sat on the floor of City Hall and we said, we need to go to Austin on Monday morning.
I needed to convince them that without this funding, the city could possibly just die.
You walked into Governor Perry's office with 24 kolaches, and it was your vision. Your vision was, we've got to create an atmosphere where people are going to want to move back. We cannot let the citizens of West move out to the country, move to Waco, move to Robinson, move to Hewitt, move to wherever. We've got to keep our community together, and that was the goal. Yeah. You had from Monday morning when we got there until Friday to convince our legislature to get the city of West an appropriations bill, and in 5 days, that seems like such a short amount of time, you secured immediate funding to get your water system going again, to get people moving back as soon as they could. If you hadn't done that, I'm not sure we'd be here today talking like we are.
They gave us $8.4 million. I guess we should have asked for more.
You spoke from the heart, but you had the hard numbers to back it up. Yeah. And we had a duty to rebuild West. And the fact that everybody in that meeting and everybody in both chambers, the House and Senate, had seen it firsthand live and was following on the news every day, they wanted to help rebuild this city. And we just had a minor role in making sure that everybody in the state of Texas and this nation and the world knew that West was an important part of this world.
Yep.
Rebuilding, refurbishing, rehabbing the existing water well that had been out during the explosion. That was absolutely paramount. Got that done. And then repairing and replacing all the water, sewer, and constructing new streets on top. I would say pretty much throughout the entire north zone. Got that done.
Mayor Mushka was extremely bulldogish in a good way about helping people remember West. And there were, some times where he had to get on the phone and talk to some officials and get some attention, and he wouldn't let go because he was really concerned about the city coming back.
It's just a time-consuming effort on everybody's part. It just didn't happen overnight. A lot of work went into this.
It's coming in 2 years later to reconstruct after such a disaster. I think it was a little nerve-wracking for the residents. They had been inconvenienced and disturbed since the blast for 2 years, and just like that, we're gonna make it look almost like what it was the day it blew up again. I mean, we're gonna demolish the streets, we're gonna take it all the way down to black dirt. It makes a mess to reconstruct the town in that manner. You could sell that to most residents as, hey, you're gonna get a brand new street, it's only gonna take us 18 months, but when someone's had 2 years of heartache and headache, it's hard to sell them on 18 months more and it'll be great.
We completely reconstructed over 3 dozen streets. And so what that meant is we removed the existing curbs and gutters and the existing pavement. We removed the existing utilities. After we put in new utilities so people would have continuous service, we put in new utilities, and then we built back new street and new curb and gutter, to the point that when you drive down those streets today, even a few years after the reconstruction, it looks and feels like a relatively new subdivision or a new town. And you can feel the difference. Literally, you can feel the difference as you drive down the road. The old roads were very bumpy and dilapidated and full of potholes and whatnot, but now it is a nice, smooth, straight ride. It's a new place.
I think that was our goal, was to get back to where anyone could drive up knowing or not knowing what had happened here and say, this is a nice neighborhood, this is a normal neighborhood, this is what it should look like.
We've come a long way in 10 years. I would have never thought it would have been this nice after seeing the damage that we had. I mean, very proud of the city.
This whole area was vacant after the demolition of 120 homes. And it was like a ghost town. To see all these homes now, 10 years later, along with the streets and everything else, they took a chance that this wasn't going to happen. These people were strong, they're brave, and they're resilient. I'm proud to be their mayor. We're not going to be defined by the explosion. The citizens of West are defined by the recovery that's occurred in the last 10 years, not what happened 17th of April 2013. I can't say enough about how these people fought hard to get to this point, to go from nothing, not even being able to go back to your house, to living in a new home. This is the part that we got to celebrate, the resilience and the strength of these people. We still got that hole in our heart from the people that we lost, but we've got beautiful homes. Our tax base is better than ever. That just shows you that the rebuilding is complete. We're back.
We're not just designing and building a water pipe. We're not just designing and building a street. We're building cathedrals to last the ages. I hope that's going to be your legacy. I think it is. I mean, what y'all gave to West is phenomenal. And I really think you have given them cathedrals to last the ages. I really do.
I mean, things that actually came out of a tragedy have morphed in and developed into a thriving city. And people could have just laid down. They could have said, you know what, I'm done, I can't do this, it's too hard, whatever. Didn't happen. It's like, end game in mind, that's where we're gonna be.
This is a new beginning, and we're gonna strive and do everything we can to pick everybody up and keep going.
To be able to go from rubble and ashes with a 70% shortfall in revenue to be thriving with kids playing in the front yard and green grass in the front yards of new homes, that's a huge success.
There are certain projects that you only get to work on once a career. And City of West and the Disaster Zone Recovery is absolutely one of those projects. And it's been a privilege.
If the community is involved in their recovery, they will not fail. And I believe in my soul, that's exactly what the city of West did.
The streets are back, the infrastructure's back, people are smiling. There was a number of years after that explosion that it was hard to pull a smile out of anybody. Now you see people smile. That's always going to be part of our history, but the citizens of West have moved on. They're going to be defined for eternity by how they rebuilt their lives. For a family with children, we have an opportunity for them to come to town and live here with some of the finest school and teachers and administrators that you could find. We have 5 subdivisions going up, everything from $500,000 homes down to starter homes. The future is very bright for the city. It's because of the citizens that persevered.
I really think that the only way we got through what we've been through is because we became a community again.
And then you drive through now and you see all these beautiful homes, a beautiful park, a nursing home that is amazing. And it makes me happy that that tragic time turned into something beautiful. I hope everybody gets to see that even though it was a tragedy, we overcame it. That is something to be proud of. We still honor those that we lost, but look how far we came.
Way out west, it was a mess. Didn't you see your neighbor cry? Way out west, we did our best. Winning game on losing time. Way out west, we'll into bed. We'll never let momentum die. No, we rise. No, we rise way out west.
I think West is an exemplary community, so much to be proud of. The people are the reason why. I just don't know anywhere else that community this size can show for 10 years of recovering and moving forward.
We're just lucky, and I'm lucky and thankful that I'm still here enjoying it and reminiscing over these things that happened back on that terrible day.
We've got big plans and dreams, stronger at the seams, hustling, bustling, it's good to be. Way out west, blood's a tie, when we see our neighbor cry. Way out west, you can bet we ain't back down from it yet. Way out west, when we try, well, it's always do or die. No, we rise. No, we rise way out west. No, we rise. No, we rise way out
Wounded deep from duty, feeling anger more than pain. Me and my old pal from high school, arm in arm, we fought the flame. Lord, bring the rain. He said, brother, get more holes in water. Was the last time he called my name. We gotta fight this beast together. No more water, only flame. They're long gone.